And so I wanted to cover all this, but I needed somebody who could do it in a fun way. And there's no guest I love to have on more than Chris Stigall. Chris has his own podcast, which I highly recommend you guys check out, The Chris Stigall Show. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Chris, thank you so much for joining the show.
Oh, it is so good to talk to you on a Friday, Grace. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Chris. Now, first, let's start from the beginning, okay? What did you think of Biden's speech?
What did I think of Biden's speech? It's all such silliness, isn't it? I can't get. Look, Grace. Here's the deal. I'm Joe Biden all of a sudden. See what I've done?
I do that, Chris. I do that all the time, and I hate myself. And I also say, "Let me be really clear," and then I'm like, "Oh my God, Grace, you got to stop." What am I going to be whispering to the audience next?
Yeah. Well, let me be clear. And you know, today, I think just yesterday in an interview, Biden also did. I found out about it just watching cable like you. He did exactly what Obama used to say. I found out about it just like you.
Yeah.
They always find out about it just like us. The most powerful men in the world always find out about stuff just like us. That's always unsettling, and I don't believe it. But anyway, I can't get past the week leading up to Wednesday night's speech, which was all over the map, and you talked a little about it. I can't get I talked with the White House correspondent for Newsmax this week, and I've begged her, and she said she's going to ask this next week on my behalf.
Emerald Robinson.
The movement. Emerald, thank you.
Yes.
Emerald, I begged her. I said, would you ask what is the movement of this president? Why is there always such oddity in the way in which he moves? And what do I mean by that? And most people don't pay attention to this, and I understand that it's not a big deal. It wouldn't sound like a big deal. There's been a pool report this week that says Joe Biden landed Monday on Marine One on the White House lawn, as they do, and that he and Jill got off Marine One and an SUV picked them up and drove them the few feet to the White House door. And then the mask announcement day, he comes out this new door in the White House we've never seen, and he walks down this long wheelchair ramp for what seems to be like a football field's walk by himself in a mask, where he takes it off and makes the announcement, you can take off the mask. By the joint address, he's got the mask back on again. Then he goes down to Georgia, and he can't find the mask, and then he's got to get the mask on, and there's this cautious walking, and Jill's holding his hand. I just want to know, is this a Visiting Angels audition? The Visiting Angels spot? Jill looks like she's a wet nurse, not his wife. And I need to know why when they travel, she's always at his side. I don't think the man's well.
No, I don't either.
Before we talk about anything else?
I agree with you, and I say that all the time, and I say it. I say it seriously because I don't want people to think that we think it's that it's a joking matter. I mean, he is the leader of the free world, and there does seem to be a lot of cognitive decline. But I agree with you. The movement does seem strange. And then, Chris, when he gave that address, I started thinking about when Donald Trump used to give these addresses and how kind of nervous I would be. I mean, I'm not a fair and balanced reporter. I'm a Trump supporter. I'm very open about that.
Sure.
But I would get a little nervous because I'm like, I really hope. I know how critical they were, and I just was thinking, I hope he delivers. I can't imagine if I was a supporter of President Biden, if I was like, let's say, Andrea Mitchell, how nervous these people must be watching him walk up to that stage and take the mic. They must be like on pins and needles for what's going to come out of his mouth.
I suspect you're right, although if you listen to them after, I mean, everybody from Van Jones to Andrea Mitchell to, the whole crew at CNN, they were gushing.
Yeah.
And you know why? And here's the thing, Grace. You understand this. Your audience understands this. We're smart. We get it by now. What he proposed was some of the most radical stuff we've ever heard to date from any Democrat, ever. It was more radical than anything that ever came out of Barack Obama's mouth, except Barack Obama could have never said it. Joe Biden can, and that's the reason he's here. Joe Biden is that avuncular, grandfatherly character, and if you listen to the critiques from the left on that speech, they all said the same thing. He's so nice. Isn't he sweet? Isn't he gentle? He reminds me of my grandfather. And that is meant to be his greatest asset and attribute, that he whispers, Grace. Yeah. Listen to me. God love you. Honestly. I'm serious. That's supposed to make you, enchanted with socialism.
No, exactly. And that's what I always say. I said this before you came on, Chris. I was like, all these people who are normal people who I know who voted for Joe Biden, they have to fill up their gas tanks. They have to, deal with these taxes. But they voted so that they could feel good because Biden cares and Biden cries. Now, meanwhile, Rome is burning. The borders are, totally overflowing. There's the schools are still shut down. Everything's a disaster, but at least when they go to bed at night, they go, oh, but he's so sweet. Isn't he the sweetest thing? I'm like, what good does it do you? Sometimes the most successful people in the world aren't there because they were so nice to everybody and they made everybody feel good.
Yeah, that's right. And he picked a dandelion for Jill, and isn't that sweet? Now, you probably heard today. Here's how the news reports this. Again, I'm sorry. I don't mean to, zero in on this, but this is a deal for me now, Grace. I'm on this like white on rice. Can I say that, or is that racist?
I think you can still say that.
Okay. Maybe I should have said brown rice, but I don't know. That's appropriation or something. But my point is, you're hearing this news report today. President Biden traveling to Philadelphia. Have you heard that report a few times today?
Yes.
He's traveling to Philadelphia to talk about Amtrak. Do you know why? Do you know why his headquarters were in Philadelphia? Do you know why he's traveling to Philadelphia and why he always will often travel to Philadelphia?
I don't.
There's a reason. Wilmington, Delaware is 20 miles down the highway, which is where he's going when he's done today, which is where he goes every weekend, and nobody talks about that. He and Jill don't stay at the White House. They keep coming back to Delaware every week, almost every single weekend since he's been elected. Quote, elected, air quotes.
So are you saying that Major isn't the only one who's having a hard time adjusting to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Look, I don't know what goes on. All I know is Joe Biden travels to Philadelphia. The only reason he's traveling to Philadelphia, it's the closest thing to his house slippers. And I just want to know why. You've got the White House. You've got the biggest, best house in the country. Why are you coming home to Wilmington? I mean, Wilmington's fine, I guess, but really? Almost every weekend? What is going on there? Am I wrong to be curious about that, Grace?
No, you're not. You're not. I actually think those are really good questions, and they're going to try really, really hard to not give you any answers. I'm speaking with Chris Stigall. You guys should check out his podcast. Chris, one of your podcasts that came out recently that I really enjoyed, you talked a lot about the CDC and about how President Biden has explained that vaccinated people could be maskless outside in small groups. Now I know you're like me. You're always walking around kind of trying to observe what the current is outside. And I've noticed, at least here in Massachusetts, which guaranteed is crazy land, but I've noticed that people still, even with the ruling of our great leader, Joe Biden, they still have the masks on.
I had this amazing dinner last night with a guy who's a conservative, a self-identified conservative. And I don't know him well, but I hadn't seen him since the pandemic kind of started over a year ago. And this is the first time I'd seen him in person. And I asked him about it and what he thought about it. And he admitted to me, Grace, something that kind of blew my mind. Because, again, Trump voter, conservative guy. And he said to me, Chris, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. When this thing started, I was terrified.
Oh,
terrified. I said, I was like, talk to me. What do you mean? He said, I locked myself in my house. The only time I left was to go grocery shopping. I was one of those guys that when I brought the groceries home, I wiped them down. I let them sit out for a day. I was scared out of my mind. He said I had to shut off all the media. He went to a therapist. He admitted all this stuff to me, and I'm not shaming him about it. It just occurred to me that this is a Republican voter. And I thought, wow, we really have our work cut out for us, Grace. This is not just some sort of left-wing Karen ha-ha thing. I think there was a good chunk of this country, not just Democrats, who had the ever-loving crap scared out of them about this thing, and it's a long walk back from that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you, and I think there's been some people who have pointed out that it would be good for all of us to show people a little bit of grace, like your friend. And I can just tell by the way you described it that you did just that. But there are people who were really, I don't want to say suckered into it, because of course people died, and of course it's real if you're part of a vulnerable population or you have comorbidities. But there were a lot of people who let the media turn this into something in their minds that it just wasn't. And I agree with you. I think we have a long way to go as far as breaking people out of this mindset. They're walking around with these masks, and it doesn't seem to be because they're following the rules anymore. It seems to be because they like it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's and again, I'm sorry if this sounds like I'm making fun. I actually am not making fun, but I have known some people that have grown up, through their teen years and maybe even into college, that are still carrying around something they slept with as a small child. Maybe a blanket or a ratty old stuffed animal or something. It sort of makes you think it's that.
It's a security blanket.
Security blanket. It's an odd Linus blanket.
Yes.
They can't, and it's a show of solidarity, and I think for bureaucrats it's a sign of control and submission. Daniel Horowitz said it's the modern-day burqa, which, pretty aggressive, but it's interesting because if you've had your vaccine and people are still wearing it, you say, why are you still wearing that if you had the vaccine? And now it's this allegiance to it. Well, I don't want to spread it to other people. Fauci's put it in people's heads that once they have the vaccine, they could still transmit it unknowingly to others. So now it's just become an article of faith.
Right.
Even if they'll never get sick again, they're just going to wear it as a pledge of allegiance to Fauci. I pledge allegiance to the Fauci of the United States of America.
Chris, you know what I saw the other day?
It's eerie.
I saw on social media somebody commented, I'm going to keep my mask on outside because I don't want anyone to confuse me with being a Republican. And I thought to myself, no one's going to confuse you as a Republican.
No.
We got it. We understand.
You and your many, 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 many cats, undoubtedly.
Speaking of that, do you think did you hear the I'm not a cat person, so I take no offense, but did you hear the interview with Craig Melvin where he was, the first question out of the gate? And Chris, this was a question I talked a lot about with my listeners about today, because I said, if you got Joe Biden alone for 5 minutes and no handlers, no one shooing you out of the room, what would you ask him? And Craig Melvin's first question was about Major the dog, because this is the state of our media in 2021. But Chris, what would you ask Joe? Like a real question if you could get him on the spot.
Oh, my gosh, that's a big one. What would I ask him? I think I'd say, what would I ask him if I had him on the spot? You can stop the border right now. Why won't you do it?
Yeah.
Would probably be the most immediate urgency in my mind would probably be the first question I'd ask, which is the border situation, the terrible, terrible situation at the border. You can stop this. Why aren't you doing it? I think would probably be that statement of fact.
I think that's a great one, and you can really, and that's, I was telling my audience, I said the key is, because my dad sends me questions all the time, and they're always really pointed, like the key is you don't want to give them any wiggle room. You want to be able to keep drilling them back to the question. Answer the question. It's like a courtroom scene.
Yes.
Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Right. Or why do you refuse to, on any given moment of any given day, stay on the same message with masking? Why do you continue to confuse people about masking?
Right.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Question. So anyway, great talking to you, Grace.
Chris, where can people follow you on Twitter? Because you have a great feed on Twitter.
Well, thank you. It's at Chris Stigall, ChrisStigall. I'd love to have you aboard, or go to ChrisStigall.com. I'm linked up to everything there, the podcast, the whole shooting match.
The podcast is awesome. Keep it up, Chris. Thank you very much for joining the show. Guys, I'm going to open up the phone lines. I want your take on what Chris and I just talked about, whether you want to talk about Tim Scott's speech, Biden on the Today Show. We got more sound of that. And I also want to discuss a little bit about what's happening with Seattle police officers. I don't know if you've seen the story, but they're leaving in droves. And it's no surprise if you've been following what's happening there. We'll be back on the other side. Don't go anywhere. It's The Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to The Grace Curley Show.